All right, we're back with Bob Salvatore. We're going to be talking a little bit about his writing career and some things that have been on my mind. A few years back, some people asked you, I watched an interview with you about whether or not you would get one of your books turned into a movie or a TV series. And you just straight said, I don't have the rights to do that. That's Wizards of the Coast. And that you sat across from a certain Star Wars fella and wished that you could hand the book over to him and be like, hey, won't you read this?
Yeah.
But as of late, Terry Brooks, his Shannara Chronicles got turned into a TV series.
Sure.
Right now, James Oliver Rigney, better known as Robert Jordan, his Wheel of Time series is being written up as a TV series.
Yep.
Do you know if there is any interest at all from Wizards of the Coast or an outside production company that has made inquiries about making any of your work into a movie or a TV series at all?
Oh, sure. That's been going on for 20 years. Yeah, there's plenty of interest, and there's a lot of talking back and forth. That's been going on forever. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Hollywood's a funny place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you going to do Homeland? How are you going to do Homeland? Are you going to have actors in blackface? Because that's where it's at now, right? That's what the people are calling it, even though they're elves.
Yeah.
So you've got to make adjustments on things like that. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I would like it to happen because it'd be interesting to see what somebody could do with it. I would like to be a part of it if that was a possibility, and kind of helping make sure my characters are what I want them to be, because that's the most important thing to me, is the philosophical and the behavior of the characters is what matters the most to me in the books. That's why I write them. But I don't know. I know there's interest. I know there's been lots of interest. It just hasn't happened yet. Just keep in mind that you hear, oh, they're going to make this series, they're going to make that series. An awful lot of things get optioned and don't get made. You never know until it's actually in production.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, like George Martin, he came from Hollywood. He was a writer on the old Beauty and the Beast series, I believe. So he knows the people out there. That's part of getting it done. Terry, it took him forever. He finally got Shannara done with MTV, of all people.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that I can really control. If it doesn't happen, I'm not going to be bitter. I always had this fantasy of going to the movies with a bunch of friends, and one of the previews being my upcoming movie, and just kind of standing up in the middle of them and going, ha, Hey, will it ever happen? I don't know. I've been luckier than anybody deserves anyway. So
if it does happen, would you want veto power? Like, in case like a production looks like it might end up turning out really terrible or something,
I'd never get that. There's the old John Grisham rule about movies. And the John Grisham rule about movies is that if you optioned it, you own it, leave me alone. I'm not even going to watch it. That's his attitude.
Huh.
I remember they were asking him why in a book, or asking someone about why in one of his books, he never even described the main characters. And he said, because I think it was him, but somebody had mentioned, well, of course he didn't, because they didn't know who they were going to cast. So I think that's the safest attitude to take. Authors get no control over anything, especially in Hollywood. Hopefully that's changed a little bit with Game of Thrones, because George Martin did get a lot of input on the series, and that helped a lot, I think. But I don't have high expectations one way or the other. And they would never give me veto power. You're going to do a movie, or better yet, a TV series, and you're laying out $100+ million. And they're not going to give me veto power. Or anyone else who didn't lay out the $100 million veto power.
That's true enough. Okay, so it's well documented that the Lord of the Rings books changed your academic career. Are there any other books or series of books that have had such a profound effect on your life besides those?
Well, what they did is they reminded me to read.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a big reader when I was a kid. By the time I got to college, I was a math major and not a reader at all. And they reminded me of the joy of imagination. Probably the fantasy books, weirdly, the fantasy books that had the most influence on what I do, it wasn't The Lord of the Rings. It was Fritz Leiber's Fafhrd and Grey Mouse or Lankhmar books. Those were, if you look at them, the Wolfgar Drizzt thing was, that was Fafhrd and Grey Mouser to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
That buddy fantasy. I love buddy fantasy, and Leiber did it better than anyone. Other than that, individual books have had profound impact on me. I think Chaucer's Canterbury Tales would be one I would have to put up there. Another one would be A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter Miller on the cycles of human stupidity, basically.
Yeah.
And I think very profoundly, in terms of the way I view writing, would be James Joyce, and particularly his short stories and the novella The Dead, which I think is the greatest piece of writing in the English language. If I ever get cocky as a writer, I read the last 5 pages of The Dead out loud and crawl in a hole because it's just perfect. It's just perfect. More than that, in what I write and what I'm trying to accomplish with what I write are historical novels, historical documentaries, and the politics of the world around me. Those are the things that shape the messages that I'm trying to put through in the books, the questions that the heroes are asking of themselves and the villains for that matter. For me, it's like, how much of an effect on my writing does The World at War, that 13-part or whatever it is series from the early 70s have? A lot. How much does Cosmos, Carl Sagan's Cosmos, have?
Yeah.
A lot. How much does The Ascent of Man, Jacob Bronowski's The Ascent of Man series, dictate the way I view culture and technological, or in my case, magical advancements? A lot. A book that absolutely inspired Demon Wars was Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose, which is the type of book I normally don't like. I don't like big, heavy, detail-oriented books. And I mean, that book's got like a 10-page description of a door. But growing up as a Catholic kid in the Northeast, it explained a lot to me that I didn't learn about my church. And it just absolutely mesmerized me. I couldn't put it down. That and Sarah McLachlan's Building a Mystery, that song Building a Mystery by Sarah McLachlan, those two things were the inspiration for Demon Wars.
Huh. Okay.
So it's weird the way that works, but it's more than just a book. Music has had a big effect on my life. The world around me has had a big effect on my life. I grew up in the 60s. I had 5 older sisters and an older brother that ran the gamut of, my oldest sister was a good Catholic, stay within the lines person. My brother was a hippie who then dropped out of being a hippie and joined the Marines because he said, if I'm going to protest something, I got to know what I'm protesting. So I grew up in a very tumultuous time. I came of age watching Cassius Clay become Muhammad Ali and mesmerizing me with his bluntness about the world. I watched my dad, who was wounded on D-Day +6 over in Cherbourg, when they were advancing on Cherbourg. I watched him crying when I was watching the '68 Olympics and Tommy Smith and John Carlos put up the black fists. And I thought he was really mad because they were protest of the anthem, for example. And I looked at him and I said, what's that? What's that? And he said, I didn't go to France to fight for a piece of cloth. I went to fight for what it stands for. And that's what it stands for. So these are the kind of moments that inspire me as a writer. These are the kind of moments that make me really cut through all the crap. And is this guy a hero or is he not? And even if he is a hero, he's going to fail. And how is he or she going to fail? And what do I do to make them realize that and correct course? Because that's what life is all about. Life is all about correcting course.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about where you were yesterday. It's about how you're going to be in a better place today. That's my inspiration. That's what keeps me writing.
2 of your novels have had a profound effect on my life. We was talking before I started recording this, and I explained how Homeland actually made me a lover of literature, because I could not read worth a darn. And that book was the one that was given to me to learn how to read and retain information that I read. But another one, which is one of my favorite books of yours, probably my second most favorite book, it's actually The Highwayman.
Highwayman? Yeah.
Yes, because as you know, but my listeners may not, I lost everything in a house fire. And I was in the lowest point of my life. And in The Highwayman, it's about a guy who really doesn't have, life is pretty much crapped on him. And it's what he does to step up and do something, even though not just perception, but physically, it's so difficult to do that in the first place. So that inspired me to get up and move forward in my life. So that 2 books that's of yours that has had such a profound effect on my life itself?